Shalom, everybody, and welcome back to Insights in the Parshat Toldot, and also Chodesh Tov. We're now entering the month of Kislev, which is an amazing month of miracles and bracha, and many scholars have written about the potential segulot of this month for salvation in many areas, B'ezrat Hashem. Without further ado, let's get into the Parsha, which is really exciting. I want to focus on the part of the Parsha which deals with Yitzchak having to face the famine and thinking he should go down to Egypt, just like Avraham Avinu went down to Egypt when there was a famine in his time. Hashem came to Yitzchak and says, no, you don't go down, you don't leave the Holy Land. You are what's called an olat mima, like a complete and whole and perfect, like a burnt offering. In other words, you were already offered on the Mizbeach, the sacrifice, the altar, and that consecrates you to have a higher level, higher status of holiness, that you are not allowed to have it tainted by exiting and leaving the Holy Land. You stay here. Hashem tells him, Gur ba'aretz hazot, live here. So what does the Torah tell us? He went down to the section of what today is called Aza, where they were saying free Palestine, the land of Plishtim, Eretz Plishtim, which is technically the same place where they're calling today is their Palestine, which is the whole stretch from underneath Ashdod and Ashkelon up towards the border of Egypt. That section of the Holy Land is considered the land of Plishtim. So now, Yitzchak went there. Go Ba'aretz, says Hashem said, live in this, sojourn in this land. It seems that even though that part of the Holy Land is not the diaspora, but it's of a lesser degree. Because even Rashi says afterwards in verse 12, chapter 26, verse 12, when the Torah depicts the bracha, that the blessings, the bounty that Yitzchak had by moving into the land of Plishtim, the Philistine land technically, and it says that, let's look at the verse itself, verse 12, Vayizra Yitzchak ba'aretz hahi, and Yitzchak sowed, he planted in that land, okay, and he vayimtza b'shanahi, and he found in that year that the crops produce 100 times more than what was expected. Mea she'arim, a shi'ur, a measurement which is 100 times more. Vayvarcheu Hashem, and Hashem blessed Yitzchak. Okay, so there was bracha here. So Rashi says on the word ba'aretz hahi, in that land. So Rashi says, what does it mean ba'aretz hahi? Afal pi she'ena chashuva ke'eretz Yisrael atzma. Strange idea. Even though this land is not as important as the Holy Land itself. So what is it? It's not the Holy Land. It is the Holy Land. Hashem told Yitzchak, don't leave the Holy Land. He didn't. So where did he go? He went to Eretz Plishtim, which is technically within the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael. Like you know in Parshat Maseh, when Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu the boundaries of the Holy Land, this part of the land is inside the Holy Land. But Rashi is saying it's not considered important as the land of the seven. You see, it says, Rashi says the reasoning. It's not as important as the Holy Land itself, comma, in other words, as the land of the seven nations. The seven nations of Canaan, Plishtim, are not enumerated amongst them. It's outside. The lands of the seven Canaanites, Chiti, Emori, Yevusi, Girgashi, all these seven are mentioned under Canaan. And then Plishtim is not mentioned part of them, to show that they're out of a boundary in a sense. So Yitzchak, it's interesting here, he didn't leave Eretz Yisrael, but he's in a part of Eretz Yisrael that's on a lesser degree. And like Rashi says, because they're not part of the seven nations. The seven nations were very bad, very demoralized, very immoral. That's why they had to be kicked out, had to be killed. Because they were so depraved that Hashem saw these people, there's no holiness in them. That's their time has come to destroy them and to kick them out, destroy them, and the Jewish people should move into Eretz Yisrael, which is the land of Shem. Bring it back to the rightful owners of the Holy Land, B'ezrat Hashem. So Plishtim, they're not part of that. They're not part of the seven because they're like in an in-between area. We're going to go into this a little. But still, it's part of Eretz Yisrael, but on a lesser degree. So Yitzchak did not leave the Holy Land, technically. He didn't go to the diaspora. Just went to a part of the land which has a lesser if you want to say holiness to it, even though it's within the boundaries of the Holy Land, but it's on a lesser degree of holiness. That's why he went there, because it was easier for him to live there. There was less of a famine, even though he's going down a level to like a lower level of holiness of Eretz Yisrael. So Yitzchak did not leave. Okay, later on in the parsha, it's Avimelech. He again, Yitzchak was afraid to go there because he thought Avimelech would take his wife. And the whole story in the parsha that Avimelech inquired, and he saw that Yitzchak and Rivka are husband and wife. So he said, "You guys can stay here, no problem." And he told his people, anybody who dares touch Rivka or anything, they will be killed and everything. So Yitzchak stayed there and became extremely wealthy, like we saw in this verse, Me'asharim, that the crops produced 100 times more. And he became so wealthy, like Rashi says, the expression became, rather the dung of the animals of Yitzchak than the gold of Avimelech. He became so wealthy that people assumed the dung of his animals have a special power to them to bring wealth. And the Midrash says that's exactly what happened. People were getting the dung of the animals of Yitzchak, and it brought bracha. So that's what the expression came, rather the dung of the animals of Yitzchak than the gold of Avimelech. So then Avimelech kicks him out, and before Yitzchak leaves, he unclogs, he opens up the dammed water sources, mayanot, of underground water that were blocked and clogged up by the Philistines. Something strange. The parsha goes into it, very like details, that Yitzchak opened up, he dug open again the wells of water that were blocked and closed by the Philistines. Rashi says the reason why they blocked it up is that there should not be water for the soldiers. But the commentaries say that's like a fake reason. The real reason we're going to go into B'ezrat Hashem in today's class. But the point is, Yitzchak unclogged before he left Gerar, which is the city, the area in Plishtim, Palestine. He opened up the wells that Avraham Avinu dug when he came there also earlier. When Avraham came to also Plishtim, the land of Avimelech, he also dug these wells. But then when Avraham left, the Philistines blocked it up again, clogged it up again. So Yitzchak opened up, he redug these wells. And it says that he dug up another well, and then the Philistine says, that's our well. And he didn't fight over it. He went elsewhere, dug another one, until finally he dug a well, and the Philistines didn't say, this is our water. Fine. So the Parsha makes a big deal about the digging of the wells. It's true, Rabbi Nachman goes into this idea in the Likutey Moharan Lesson 60. You can see there an amazing development, how Rabbi Nachman opens up the idea of the wells dug and clogged by the Philistines. But we want to express it from the perspective of Rav Noson's discourse, Likutey Halachot Birkat Hoda'ah, Halacha Vav, the laws of giving thanks, discourse number 6, which is based on Likutey Moharan Lesson 24. First, we have to see how Rav Noson amazingly expresses the deeper meaning of Philistine, Plishtim. Okay, this nation, Plishtim, the Palestinians, Plishtim, the root, Rav Noson writes, of the word Plishtim is mefulash. Mefulash, meaning something like an alleyway that's open. In the laws of Eruvin, in the laws of making, the proper Eruvin, the borders to where you're allowed to walk and carry on Shabbat, right? Eruvin. So in the discussion of the laws of Eruvin, there's the topic of an alleyway that has no heker, has no sign indication, so to allow you to walk there. So it's called mavui mefulash, an alleyway that's open at one end, open at the other end. There's no wall, there's no closing, there's no mechitza, nothing. Mefulash. Rav Noson explains the idea of Plishtim being mefulash. The idea of mefulash, is that it represents people, an attitude of people who just want spirituality, high intensity light. They want light without vessels, without kelim. They want to tap into light, but no barriers, no obstacles. Rabbi Nachman teaches lesson 24. The key for a person to receive light in life is specifically the setbacks, the barriers, the obstacles, the walls he faces in life. That's what builds a person more than anything else. It's an amazing rule in life, or all of life, that a person has to know the difficulties he's going through, the challenges, the obstacles, the delays, and the person thinks, it's pushing me away, I want to advance so much, and they won't let me. Heaven won't let me advance. Why? What am I doing wrong? Instead of feeling guilty, Rabbi Nachman says, you have to understand, they're trying to help you from heaven. This is the way to build vessels, that to receive the light is by having vessels built due to walls, barriers. That's what builds you. It's not like you think, okay, let everything just be free and light and let's advance. No, you're not going to advance. You're going to crash. You're going to crash. Okay? Plishtim, Rav Noson explains, rooted in the idea of mefulash, are a type of people who want to go extreme. They want all the way extremity in their spirituality, in life. You have people who are like that. They're very extreme. They want to go all the way. In other words, they want to have access to energy and light and openness, that it should be all the way, no obstacles, no difficulties, okay? These people, Rabbi Nachman teaches, Rav Noson elaborates on this point, crash the most. Because you can't go up and bear the intensity of the light of the experience. If you have that, you're going to burn out and crash all the way down, okay? So, mefulash, plishtim, is a mentality, it's an attitude of people, which we also see today, that the people who are filled with hatred and jealous and envy and everything, and if they're against the Jewish people, for example, it's because of an extreme attitude in their belief system, in their religiosity and philosophy and perspective, where they like to be extreme in having a enlightened experience in their religion, in their living, in their spirituality, and only to lead them to crash afterwards. And when they crash, they go down all the way. Like it says, Ya'alu Sham in chapter 107 in Tehillim, that we read right before Mincha on Friday, before Shabbat, as has been said by the Baal Shem Tov, Ya'alu Shamayim Yerdu Te'omot. They go up to the heavens, but then they go down to the depths. Who goes down to the depths? People go up to the heavens. They go up and fly and fly. I want spirituality. I want spirituality. These people crash. This is also in Judaism. I forget people outside of the Jewish nation, but anyone, even in Judaism, especially in Judaism, people who are just too spiritual and too high, these are the ones who crash the most. And then when they crash, they drop everything. As opposed to the person who accepted going step by step and waiting and slow and patience and patience and patience, he gets somewhere in life because he's built enough vessels to contain light within him that the setbacks don't bother him. He appreciates them because that's what builds him more than anything else. Okay? So Plishtim are the type of people, and like in the Chumash, and where Avimelech is coming from. And it's funny why the Torah makes such a big deal in this week's Parsha, also in Parshat Vayera with Avraham and Avimelech also, right? Go down to Plishtim and face this challenge of this nation. And then now the case of the wells. What's the idea of the wells? The wells, Rabbi Nachman also touched upon this in lesson 60. The idea that the wells which were dug open by Avraham Avinu are well springs of Torah. That's the deeper dimension. Not just physical water, but the waters of the Torah. Avraham Avinu sought to dig, to make accessible to people the well springs of light, of holiness, of Kedusha, of the Torah, and make it available. Okay? So you would think, oh, that's amazing. Don't the Plishtim also like that? Mefulash, they want light. The thing is, specifically people like Plishtim, mefulash attitude of just going all the way with no borders, no walls, no boundaries. These people go up and then they crash. When they crash, they're so feeling bad about themselves that they feel bad about other people trying to do good out of jealousy and guilt and everything. So the Torah says, Sitmum Plishtim. It's the Plishtim specifically who closed up the wells. You would think, but that's the exact opposite of what they are. They want all the way spirituality. So it's good that a wellspring of life in Torah is opened up. That's not great, of spirituality and light and connection to God. That's what the idea of a well is. But no, specifically the Plishtim covered it up. Yitzchak came back to the land of Plishtim to reopen them, to fix the damage done by the Plishtim mentality, to reopen. And again, the Plishtim were fighting, this is our well, it's not your well, why do we care whose well it is? Not just like, oh, it's a physical substance of our well water, but there's a spiritual dimension to it. That the Plishtim say, you're opening it up, so it's ours. It's true. You, Yitzchak, opened it up, but once we see more spirituality coming up, so we're all the way for a high. We just want a spiritual high. You're giving us access. Thank you. That's why they fought over the wells. But after Yitzchak leaves, Mistama, most probably they closed up the wells again because they can't last with a people who have an attitude of mefulash, being open all the way to light without any barriers, without walls, without mechitzot, curtains, to keep a person sustained in a balance of having enough light to the extent he won't disintegrate from that over experience of light. So this is the whole ordeal between Yitzchak and the Plishtim and the wells, him digging open, because again, the goal of Judaism, the goal of Yitzchak, the goal of the Torah, the goal of serving Hashem is to make Hashem's presence known in the world. Yes, it's not to be, it's only kept reserved for a small group of people. It is to let Hashem created the world, that his name should be made known in the world. That is a goal. It is a goal. The problem is there's the distortions, there's the evil, there's the free choice, the free will. But Yitzchak, on his part, he's doing something positive to promote Hashem's presence in the world, which is the idea of opening up the well springs of the Torah, of holiness, accessing it. If it's closed up, due to people who block it up, to reopen them. This, is also the idea what the job of the tzaddikim is. Tzaddikim at the caliber of Yitzchak and Avraham, they spend their lives trying to dig wells. In other words, to open up wells to reveal source of light in a place where it wasn't revealed. To open it up and let it be revealed. But specifically people like them who know how to balance between light and constriction, who are not mefulash like the Plishtim, they're the ones who can successfully open a well and keep it open. Plishtim, they can't keep it open because of their extreme attitude. They go up and then they crash all the way because it's open up and it's also open down below. So they go up high, burn out, and then go down, 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 down all the way. And that's why they can't handle having the wells kept open. That's the idea of sitmum Plishtim. We should be zocher to follow the advice of the true tzaddikim, because the advice of the true tzaddikim are there to help us to build the right vessels to contain the light, the infinite light. The tzaddikim reveal advice. Our goal is to, with simple, pure faith, follow their advice, point blank, whether I feel for it, whether I don't feel for it. I'm a soldier. I'm committed. I believe what I'm told to do as being the right vessels to create. I will go in all the way and be like a soldier and do it. And anyways, it's not so difficult. The way of the Torah, the way of the Torah is pleasant. No one tells you to jump off a cliff, to jump off a mountain, and to exert yourself, and pain and suffering. That's not, Baruch Hashem, the Torah is pleasant. It's pleasant to eat on Shabbos, right? It's pleasant to do mitzvah. It's not so bad, it's good. And once you connect to that good feeling, Bezat Hashem, there's a lot of simcha. And even if you don't, the fact that you believe in it also is enough to generate simcha. We should be zocher to have right vessels to keep the wells open. Shabbat Shalom.